I'm going to read, I believe, one more poem. And this is the most Pittsburghy Pittsburgh poem I've ever Pittsburghed. Chris and I were talking one time. I like how so many of my stories about people who are here. This is great. Or it just shows how incestuous the Pittsburgh poetry community truly is. But anyway, Chris and I were talking about what would happen if you fused my poetry and Chris's poetry, essentially, because I write way too much about mythology, and Chris writes a lot about the city. And I was like, clearly we'd be writing about the gods of Pittsburgh. But they don't have, like in Hinduism, or in certain areas of Hinduism, they have gods for everything. There's a god of that rock over there, and a god of that stove, and a god of that house. So clearly the gods of Pittsburgh are like that. They're not these big grand things. And for some reason, I just read an article, there was this diner, the Pickle Barrel, that burned down a while ago. And it was, and the Pickle Barrel, people liked it, but it really meant it when it burned down. It burned down twice. That was pretty impressive. I mean, the Pickle Barrel meant it. So for some reason we were talking about it. It was clearly there's a god of the Pickle Barrel. So then I was like, I should write that poem. And I did. Now you have to listen to it. It's called Eulogy for the Burned God of the Pickle Barrel. He's an old name to some. The whites of his shrine long yellowed, his name a gurgled late night whisper by men who smell of paust and smoke, bodies translucent. He was a rest stop for 8 a.m. suburban high school escapees, tumbling off the tee into the mystery of the South Side's quieter hours. He knew how the trash looked different in the morning than the afternoon, how the rivers smell when the light first hits them, breathed into each coffee carafe. This is my blood, shed for you. Do this, do this. And when he burned, he did it good, baby. Set fire to all the grease he had, turned the sugar packets to napalm. Did it twice for good measure. And his worshipers, they blocked off Carson Street for 4 blocks. They evacuated 100 people. Some gods don't even make it 45 years. Firecracker pops that ring in your ears but don't leave more behind than a bright flash. Dazed children in their wake. And who knows why he burned? And in the end, does it matter if it was faulty wires, a grill left on overnight, arson, a flicked cigarette? Now, it seems like everyone has pressed their mouth to him once. Everyone has let him touch them, harden their arteries by inches. And though they are drawn to different gods now, ones with names like Tom and Ritter, still, they hear the whisper behind their ear, do this for the remembrance of me. Thank you.